Today's daf, Bezos Hashem, is Masechta Sanhedrin Daf Mem, and we're going to start from the beginning of the Perek Hamishi. So we are talking about capital punishment cases, where let's say you have a witnesses saying that so and so was Mechalal Shabbos. So how did they they investigate the witnesses? What kind of questions did they ask him? And that is the discussion of this chapter. A case in point, you realize the more questions that you ask, the more questions that you ask, uh, the, the more questions that you ask the Adim, the less of a chance to get a conviction because you're tripping the witnesses up. So it's more like, again, all the Jewish courts are skewed not to kill anybody. So therefore, they always ask questions to try to, first of all, make sure that you could be mazim the Adim, that you can actually prove them false by having somebody else say, you said it occurred at this and this time, you were with us at that moment. So those are the things that they ask the witnesses. Hi, Louis. We just began. So
Mm.
the Mishnah is discussing some leniencies, and I say leniencies. Hold on. All right, let's call Sheldon. Hi, Sheldon. We just began.
Okay,
Daf Mem, the new parak.
right.
So the Mishnah discusses investigating and checking the witnesses of a capital punishment case. Now, the more questions you ask the witnesses, the more of a chance that you're going to trip him up. And because of that, the person who's on trial will be innocent. Again, it all states back that we avoid the skew of the court of the Jewish court is not to kill somebody. So the Mishnah says, they would check the witnesses with 7 types of questions, deep questions. They would ask him, Be'eza Shavua, which you saw, let's say, a murder happen, which year of the Shemitah cycle? There are like 7 Shemitah cycles to a Yovel, 7 times 749, and then there's the Yovel, the Jubilee year. So which one? Shemitah cycle did this event occur? Be'ez Shana. Which year of the Shemitah cycle? Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Be'ez Chodesh. Which day of the month? Bekama b'chodesh. Be'ez Chodesh. Which month? Bekama b'chodesh. Which day of the month? Be'ez Yom. What day of the week was it? Be'ez Sha'ah. Or what day of the year, what day of the hour it was? Be'ez Makoim. And is what place it happened. So if you count up these questions, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 questions they ask the witnesses. Again, if they mess up on these questions, if they contradict each other on these questions, one guy says it was a Tuesday, the other witness says it was a Wednesday. So then you know that the witnesses are disqualified. 7 questions. Rabbi Yossi says, Be'ezi Yom, they would ask only 3 questions. Be'ezi Yom, which day? Be'ezi Sha'ah, which hour? Be'ezi Makayim, where did it happen? Where did the killing take place? But not 7 questions. Then they would ask him, by the way, we have Nabuch, but it's a fascinating thing, like an old child who hangs around Share, that you could ask him, say a date, and boom, he'll tell you what day of the week it comes out on. It's fascinating. I did it again this week, test him out, and then on Matzah Shabbos I check it out, and he's spot on. So interesting. Anyway, a savant. So one back to the Mishnah, they ask the question of Makirin Atan Oisei, did you recognize the person? Was he Jewish? Maybe the victim was a goy, and therefore the man on trial is not chayiv misa. His rasemboy, did you warn him? Don't kill, right? Did you warn him right before he did the act? Ha'oivid avodah zarah, if he worshipped idols. So let's say you're saying witnesses that testifying that so and so worshipped idols. So you ask the question, Esmi avad, the kama avad, the me avad. Which type of idol worship was he working with? What was the name of the avodah zarah? Baal Pa'ar, Markulis, of it. And how did he perform the Avodah Zarah service? Did he bow to it? Did he slaughter an animal? And kol hamarba bedikois, as long as you ask questions, harezim meshubach, then that's a good bezdin. That's a praiseworthy bezdin because you can trip up the Adam, and once you trip up the Adam, that's great because then you don't kill the man on trial. Maasa, there was a story. Ubadak ben Zakkai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai checked it out and asked the question, "Bu'uktzei te'enim." A murder happened under a tree of a fig tree. So he asked, how big were the branches of the tree? Were they thick? Were they? It's not relevant to the murder. I mean, what's the difference? He asked the question like that. So ma bein chadir, but that's called. There's a difference between a bedika and a chakira. So the Gemara asked, the Mishnah asked, ma bein chakiras lebedikas. What's the difference between a chakira and a bedika? Now, a chakira is a very important question. You have to know what time, what day did the murder happen. Bedika is what color was the building, or something like that, or what color what color was the tree, the leaves on the tree when the murder happened. That's not so relevant for the murder. So, what's the difference between a chakira and a bedika? Chakira seems to be a more important question. Chakiras, echad oime eni yadei edusim betela. If one of them says, I don't know the answer to that question, let's say he doesn't know if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, so then edusim betela. Then there is no witnesses. If one guy says that it happened on a Tuesday, and the other witness says, I'm not sure, then the edus is bottle. Bedikas, if echad oime eni yadei, v'ashil shnaim oimrim ein onu yodim edusim kayamis. If by a bedika, this type of question that's not relevant to the case. You ask a question of how many figs were on the tree when the murder happened underneath the tree. So if one witness says, I don't know, or both of them said, we don't know, then still the testimony is valid. Echad chakiras ve'echad bedikas, but both by chakira and bedikas, bisman shemachishin zeh edusim betela. If they denying each other, if they're contradicting each other, then of course, then the edus is bottled. So if you ask one witness, how thick were the branches of the tree, and he says it was very thick, and the other one says it was very thin, even though it's a murder trial, what's the difference how the tree looked? The murder happened underneath the tree. But if they're contradicting each other regarding the tree, then the edus is nullified. Now, the Mishnah says, Echad oime b'shnayim b'chodesh. Some guy, one witness says it happened on the second day of the month. The Echad oime, and one says, b'shloisha b'chodesh. It happened on the third day of the month. Eidusan kayamis. Now, they're saying the wrong date, so they're not really contradicting each other. How could it be they're not contradicting each other? The previous one knew that the last month, let's say, was a 29-day month. And therefore, he thought it was a 29-day month, so now it's the third day of the month. The other one knew that the last month, there was a 30-day month, so today is the second day of the month that happened. So they didn't have calendars, yeshiva calendars, so it's possible that one thought it was the second day of the month, and the other one thought it was the third day of the month. They're off by a day. But one says it happened on the third day of the month, and one of them says it happened on the fifth day of the month, then they're disqualified witnesses. Now we go, what happens regarding the time? One guy says, let's say 2 hours in the day. Let's call 2 hours of the day. If the day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, the murder happened at 8 o'clock in the morning. And somebody says it happened at 9 o'clock in the morning. Edusin kayemes, then the witnesses are valid because they didn't have clocks. I don't know when the clock was invented, but certainly it's more a recent phenomenon. So you looked at the sun. So it's possible that the witnesses don't have the time correct. So they're still valid witnesses. But one guy says it was 9 o'clock in the morning. 9 o'clock in the morning. And the other one said it happened 11 o'clock in the morning. Edusim betela, they're invalid witnesses. Rabbi Huda Kayamis, they're valid witnesses. Not everybody's so exact. In fact, witnesses can make a mistake with 2 hours. But Rabbi Yehuda agrees. One says it happened at 12 o'clock. Okay, 11 o'clock. Fifth hour is the 11 o'clock. And one says it happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So even though there's a 2 hour discrepancy between the witnesses, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree, Eidus and Betela, they're disqualified witnesses. Why? Because Shebechomesh, Chamesh b'mizrach. At 11 o'clock in the morning, the sun is in the east. Uvesheva, and by 1 o'clock, it's already turned. Chama b'marav. The sun is in the west. So therefore, those are the questions that even Rabbi Yehuda would disqualify if they get it wrong. And then they bring in the second witness. After they question the first witness, they bring in the second witnesses, and they ask him all these questions. They both are perfect witnesses. They agree on everything. Nevertheless, very interesting. We always start off, so-and-so witnesses say he murdered somebody, but we think he's innocent. We always start the case saying the guy is innocent. It's like almost innocent till proven guilty, because that's the way the skew is always innocent. So we start the case, even though it's completely sheker. We have witnesses. We just tested the witnesses. They seem correct. We'll say that the guy is innocent. Anyway, let's say after one of the witnesses says, I want to be counted as one of the dayanim. And he says, Yesh li lelamed olav zchus. I have a merit. I can think of why that the man on trial is innocent. So we said this before, that the witnesses may have a motive to say that, because maybe they're trying to protect themselves from being caught as Eidim Zaymimin. So we will not take anything the witnesses. Witnesses are impartial. They say their testimony, and we don't take their opinion regarding what they feel about the man on trial, if he's innocent or guilty. But with one of the students, remember that in front of the Bezdin, there were apprentices, interns, so to speak. And he says, Yesh li lamed olav chayva. He raises his hands. He says he wants to join the Bezdin because he has a reason that the man on trial is guilty. Mishat genoise. We quiet him down. We don't invite him to join the bench. But if one of the students say, Yesh li lelamed olav zchus, I have a reason that the guy is innocent, malanoise, we'd call him up and count him. So let's say there's 23 dayanim, we'll bring him up as the 24th. We make him sit down amongst the regular dayanim. He's like an intern that was invited to be part of the surgeons. And he would never go down from that bench. Because, and im yesh mamish b'dvarav, if he makes sense, shaymin loy, we listen to him. Again, we're skewing it. Only if he has a reason to bring up to the case that the man on trial is innocent. Then, and only then, we'll invite him up to the bench. If not, we don't invite him up to the bench. That's regarding the interns. Even if the man on trial says, Yesh li lelamed atzmi zchus, I have a reason to say that I'm innocent. Shaymin Lai, we listen what he has to say. Uvavach yesh mamish b'dvarav. He has to have some substance. He just can't rant on and ramble on, and we'll let him have the stand. No, he has to have some reason. If they found, if they counted, and they found that he's innocent, patru, they ended the trial that day. Vim lav. If they think he's guilty, mavir and oisin macha, then they make the announcement the next day. They want the Bezdin to sleep over it. Through umazdavgin oisei zugais, and then they peer the Bezdin. In other words, they give two. They should go home and talk it over. Let's say 2 people of the Bezdin should go home with each other. They make chavrusas and talk it over. Why your opinion is this way, his opinion is that way. Now, they would not eat so much. They wouldn't drink wine that day because it's a serious matter, putting somebody to death. The noisim and noisim kalalayla, and they would talk to each other within each other. The chavrusas would talk it over the entire night. Ulamachros, the next day, mashkin and boil and bezin, and then the next day the bezin reconvenes, And the court, the 23 judges come and they fasted that day. They didn't eat because they're going to commit somebody to murder. And when they commit him to murder, they murder him right away. They kill him right away. Hamazaka Oime, the one that said he's innocent, Ani Mizaka, he says, I hold he's innocent. Umazaka Ani b'mekoyme, and I stand my ground. V'amachayev Oimer, and the one who says he's guilty, Ani mechayev, I hold he's guilty. Umechayev Ani b'mekoyme, and I still stand my ground. Now, the Mishnah teaches you a halacha. Hamalamet chayva, if you originally thought he was guilty, malamet chus, you could change your opinion that he's innocent. Aval hamalamet chus, if you we're going to learn the way the Gemara learns, like Rav taught us. If you originally thought he's innocent, of course, when it comes to the count, if your heart tells you he's guilty, you're allowed to vote guilty. But you can't, talk it over your opinion with other people. You can't talk it over and debate that the guy should be guilty. If you already were your opinion, everybody knows your opinion as innocent, you can't start changing your opinion in front of everybody to guilty. You can do it in private by the final count says, I'm changing my vote to guilty. Toba Devavar, let's say they don't know exactly what I said. A guy, I don't know how that could happen. A guy goes home and he forgets if he voted innocent or guilty. Shnei Soifri Hadayanim Maskirnois, the two stenographers of the court, Maskirnois, they remind him what he voted. Umatzu Lois Patru. If they find that he's innocent, they sent him home. The man on trial. Vim Lav, Oim Dim Laminion, they counted. Now remember, to commit a person to death, to convict a person to death, you have to win by 2. And there's only 23 judges. So Shnayim also Mazakim Ve'echad also Mechayim. If you have 12 say innocent and 11 say guilty, Zakai, he's innocent. Shnayim also Mechayim Ve'echad also Mazakim. If you have 12 say guilty and 11 say innocent, even if 11 say innocent and 11 say guilty, and one says I don't know, so now it's 11 versus 11. Or if you have 22 say that he's innocent or guilty, well, he's guilty. And one says, he doesn't know. He's acquitting himself from being the judge, right? He's stepping down. So Yosifa Dayanim, then you have to add judges to make sure either that the guy is guilty by 2, or that you have at the minimum 23 judges discussing this case. The Kama Masifin, how much do we add at one time? Shnaim, 2 at a time. The maximum of a case, of a capital punishment case, should be 71 judges. We don't go beyond the number 71. So if there's always a tie, we always add 2, up until the number 71. Shloisha v'shisha mezakin and shloisha v'chamisha mechayvim. Let's say you have 36 say innocent and 35 say guilty. Of course, zakai, he's innocent. Shloisha v'shisha mechayvim v'shloisha v'chamisha mezakim. 36 say guilty and 35 say innocent. But you have to win by 2, so you need 37, right? Danon elu kneged elu. They debate it. Until one of them switches sides. Either the guilty will turn to the innocent, or the innocent, the Mishnah doesn't say that, the innocent will go up to the guilty side. But we need to come to a conclusion. There's no such a thing of a hung jury by the Jewish world. 71, you'll just sit there and sit there and sit there until a conclusion is made. Now the Gemara asks a question. You said that there are 7 questions we test the witnesses. How do you know such a thing? Amar Rabbi Yehuda said the Amakra, because the pasuk tells us. When it comes to Ir Hanedachas, the Torah says v'dorashta, v'chokarta, v'shavalta heitev. So that's 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 questions. V'oimer, and then there's another pasuk by, I guess this pasuk is by when a person does avodah zarah. Torah says v'hu gadlecha, v'shamata is 4, v'dorashta heitev is 5. So that's 5. And then I forgot to put the numbers here, but let's put the number here right now. So V'darash Tehetiv is number 5. And then V'darshu is number 6. And Heitev is number 7. By Eidim Zoimimim, it says V'darshu Ashreiftim Heitev. So it's 6, 7. So you have 7, but each one is talking about a different topic. The first pasuk is talking about Iranidachas. The second pasuk is talking about a regular guy who does avodah zarah, and the third pasuk is talking about Edim Zaymim. Says the Gemara, we go to Omer Beis. So the aim echad. So the Gemara asks the question, how do you know you apply all 7 questions by every single case? Maybe by Iran Dachas we'll ask 3 questions, by regular avodah zarah we'll ask 2 questions, and by Edim Zaymim we'll ask 2 questions. How do you know you apply all of them? Answers the Gemara, Kevan the kiulu bahade hadade kisivei, mahade yalfei, the kivan the alfei, mihadade command the ksive bechade dami. Since they're all similar psukim, if you look at the psukim, the drashta, the chakatav, shalta, heitev, they all use that, similar language. So it applies, we're going to say that maybe what the Chumash is saying, by any case that you're dealing with witnesses, a capital punishment case, let's say a murder case, or a Chilul Shabbos case, you're going to ask 7 questions. We're going to apply everything. Says the Gemara, back to the Amar Beis. Let us say, remember, to ask these questions for a witness is a kula, because it's a leniency, because the more you get a chance to trip up the witnesses, the more likely the person on trial is innocent. So maybe we're trying to make maybe by the more difficult cases, the more worse of the Aveira, maybe the less questions you should ask. Maybe the Torah says like this: by Irani dachas lanachtakti l'damish came a money pullet. An Irani dachas, you totally destroy it. You mean if everybody in the city did avodah zarah, Torah says you destroy, you kill them with the sword, and you burn up the whole place. So maybe on that case, maybe the Torah was very strict about it. You should only ask 3 questions. That's it for the Edim. Or avodah zarah lahanach tatu le'mishachem Messiah. Avodah zarah gets skila. Irna dachas gets which is the most worst type of punishment. So maybe if an individual does avodah zarah, the Torah says only ask the witnesses 2 questions, not 7 questions. Or maybe Edim Zaymim. Maybe Edim Zaymim is the most severest type of aveira, because hanach tadu came tzrichem asrar. Or every other Avera, you need a warning before you get punished. But Edim Zaymim is an exception. We'll learn more about Edim Zaymim in Masechet Matos, but there's no such a thing. You have warning for an Edim Zaymim. If they become Edim Zaymim, that's it. They get the punishment, and therefore maybe the Torah says that only in these cases you would only required to ask the Edim only 2 questions. So again, the Gemara's question is, how do I know that by every capital punishment case, you're going to ask 7 questions? The Torah only said it by 3 different type of aveiros. You ask different types of questions. By Iran Adachas, it's 3 questions. By regular avodah zarah, it's 2 questions. And by Edim Zaymim, it's 2 questions. So the Gemara is going to say there's an Gzeira Shava, Heitiv. You notice the one word that appears in every one of these psukim? It's the word Heitiv. So they're all extra. Heitiv teaches you that everything is the same, and you apply all the questions by every one of them. That's what the Gemara is going to say. So the Gemara says, "Beheitiv yalfidim al dadi ugzei shava mufne," and all these words heitiv are extra. The Eloi mufne, if it wasn't extra, you have questions. So you could always ask questions. So in order to be a Gzeira Shava, a clean Gzeira Shava, there could be a totally extra word that the Chumash puts down there. So you could have a Gzeira Shava to apply all 7 questions by each one of these Averas. Midahave leile michtav v'darshu v'chakru v'shanekra b'dibure beheitiv shma mina le'afnuye. Since the Torah could have written by let's say by Edim Zaymim, Torah could have written, instead of the word heitiv, it could have written the word v'darshu v'chakru right over here. It could have written instead of heitiv, or by regular avodah zarah, it could have written v'drashta v'chakru. So therefore, the heitiv is extra. But wait a second, by Iran Dachas, it's not extra. Torah already wrote v'darashta v'chakarka v'sha'alta. What else could it have written? It's trying to teach you that you have to ask extra questions. So it had to write that word. Why is that word an extra word? Bishla mahanach tarte. Now back into the Gemara over here. Bishla mahanach tarte mufnu mishnahavle lemichtav. It didn't have to. It could have written something else. V'chakru el ira dedachtas. My havle lemichtav. What else it could have written? It already used all the languages of questioning witnesses. So hativ mean do it well. I mean, obviously that word hativ is not extra. Haksiva Kula wrote every type of word regarding questioning the witnesses. And says the Gemara, Hasam Nami Afnuya Mifne. It's also extra. It could have written the same word twice. It said the word hativ. Shmamina lafnui, that it's an extra word. So basically, what we learned so far, and maybe we'll stop over here, but we'll stop right here. But what we learned so far, and then we'll take it up later. What we learned so far is that you ask 7 questions. Really, you would think that this is a concept made up by Chazal, but really it's learned from Psukim, because the Torah tells you ask 3 questions here, 2 questions here, 2 questions here, yeah, and they're by 3 different averos. We add them all up, and we apply them by every type of avera that a person does. Bezdin has to ask 7 questions to the witness to get them to trip up, because the Mishnah says if you ask the witnesses more questions, you get more of a chance that the witnesses are going to trip up and the man will be innocent. And that's what we're trying to do, not to kill somebody. And it's all learned out from a Gzeira Shava of hativ. Okay, we'll stop right here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So the Gemara continues over here. We're going to just get to Rabbi Yossi. V'asu nechnokin. Now that we know that by avodah zara, which gets sreifa, avodah zara gets sreifa, and irani dachas gets cherev. So how do you know that Chanika gets avodah zara gets skila? Now, how do you know if you do an avera that's chayev chenek, you would ask sheva chakiras? That madach by avodah zara, which is skila, you're asking 7 questions. Certainly by an avera that there's only chenek, you're going to ask 7 questions. And something that's chayev sreifa will make it a kal v'chayim from niskalim. That madach niskal, which is avodah zara, you ask 7 questions. So any avera that's chayev sreifa will also ask 7 questions. Says the Gemara, and if we're asking 7 questions by the chamer diga avera, so we're going to ask 7 questions by the kula diga avera. El Reb Shimon damas sreifa chamura. If the sefer is more severe, what are you going to say? Maybe you only ask 7 questions by skila, because it's a lighter avera, but such a hard avera that gets sreifa, maybe you don't ask 7 questions. Rav Yehuda says, V'ine emes nachayin, v'ine emes nachayin. It says by Adam Zaymimin, it says by Irna Dachas, and it says by avodah zara, emes nachayin, hachad sarei. So you now have hachad sarei. You have 11. Emes and nachayin. So it's 2. You add, and 2 is 4, and we already had 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. Sheva l'sheva chakiras. You have 7 words for the sheva chakiras. Dal tlas l'gzeir shava. You have 3 words that you need empty for gzeir shava. Pasha luchada, and then you have 1 remaining over. Reb Shimon latu yinisrafim. Rabbanam milsas mekav v'chomer tarach v'chasav lakra. According to Rabbanam, it's of course extra. We don't need that. According to Reb Shimon, it's going to add nisrafim, that even nisrafim will get 7 questions. Okay, so that's the way the Gemara is now coming out. That really it's more than just a gzeira shava. There's 7 extra words. There's actually 11 extra words for 11 questions. 7 real questions, 3 for a gzeira shava, empty, doesn't count as questions, and then 1 is to marben nisrafim. Rabbo had asked a very difficult question. Maybe there are 8 questions. maybe we don't marba nisrafin, according to Rab Shimon. There's 8 questions. So the Gemara asks, how could you ask 8 questions? What's left there to ask? Allah Malay, says the Gemara. Why can't I make up an 8th question? The Gemara is defending Rabbaval. You could ask them what time in the hour it was. Some rices hold you 8 questions. That if according to Abaya, so nobody makes any mistakes, so there is no 8th question. So yeah, what time during the hour? You can't expect the guy to know. Ella la Ba'alid Behuda Adam Tayachachashal Rava Amatari Enesh Tuva Ma'yikalamema, that a person could make a mistake. So there is no, if you hold that you couldn't, nobody makes mistakes, then you could ask the question. Or if you make a little mistake, but a big mistake you don't make, then you could ask an 8th question. But if you hold that we can't hold people down to time, to exact time, so they can make big mistakes, there could be big 59 minutes variations. So if there could be such a thing, then what could be the 8th questions according to Rabbi Bo? And that he's asking the questions, maybe there's an 8th question. Ella tu become You want to say the 8th question is to ask what year of Yovel, which Yovel it was? Haidi be'eza Shavua. Which year of Yovel it was? Was it the 44th year? Was it the 23rd year of the Yovel cycle? That's Be'ez Shvua. That's basically saying which Shemitah cycle it was. Ella Tuya Be'ez Yovel, which Yovel it was. So that's a very difficult question. That's what Rabbi Avo says. And make an 8th question that you ask in which Yovel it was. The third Yovel, each Yovel is 50 years. The Idach, once you're asking which Shemitah, which year within the Yovel it is, let's say it's the 23rd or the 24th, within that Yovel, you don't have to know which Yovel it is, because the Eidim are only live probably within one Yovel cycle, their lifespan. So you're not going to ask them which Yovel it is. So that's obvious they know which Yovel it is. It's the Yovel that they're around. And so therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that the 8th person, that there's no such thing of an 8th question. He doesn't even mention Rabbi Bo's thinking. So there was only 7 questions. So that therefore it's extra. The extra word teaches you that even the Srafin gets 7 questions. Okay, so ends Daf.